Hey class, bienvenidos a este video. En esta clase vamos a revisar unas secciones con vocabulario muy básico y vamos a revisar todo el vocabulario que tú debes de checar en Google con imágenes y visuales. Tú lo debes de revisar uno por uno y voy a usar este video para mostrarte en inglés todas las secciones. Hey class, muchísimas gracias por entrar a este video y ver esta clase. Si quieres apoyar al canal, por favor suscríbete, dale like al video y en los comentarios sugiere el tema de la siguiente clase que te gustaría ver en el siguiente video. Es que necesitas, y aquí tenemos las diferentes secciones y lo vamos a ver todo en inglés. Por ejemplo, te voy a enseñar un poco sobre el plan de un restaurante, como las áreas del restaurante. Las partes del restaurante, obviamente, necesitas saber si eres trabajador, cómo se llama cada una. Muy general, no vamos a entrar para qué es cada uno, pero solo te voy a enseñar algunas partes de vocabulario que tú, en tu propio tiempo, deberías de invertir unos minutos cubriendo para que las clases de este curso de inglés para restaurante de trabajadores te vayan fluyendo muy bien las habilidades que están adentro de las lecturas. Revisando estas diferentes áreas de vocabulario vas a hacer un excelente trabajo. En este video también vamos a cubrir el equipo, como los cuchillos, diferentes cuchillos que hay en los restaurantes y en los eventos de alimentos y bebidas, diferentes tenedores, diferentes cucharas, diferentes artículos de vidrios como diferentes vasos, diferentes equipos que tenemos en las mesas, y también equipo que no está en la mesa, que usan los meseros y las meseras, por ejemplo. También vamos a ver algo de vocabulario con los métodos de cocina. Todos los métodos de cocinar aplicando algo de fuego, por ejemplo. También vamos a ver diferentes ingredientes y comida, como los mariscos y todas las aves. También los otros animales, como los animales de carne. También te voy a enseñar un poquito en inglés los vegetales, las raíces, las hierbas. Vamos a ver un poco de las bebidas. Por ejemplo, algunas bebidas calientes, bebidas frías. Vamos a cubrir cómo hay algunos nombres de bebidas alcohólicas que puedes encontrar en tu restaurante, como cervezas, cócteles y licores. Así que acompáñame a revisar un poco de este vocabulario general. Es un poco de vocabulario que vas a ver todos los días en un restaurante. Así que si tu inglés no está al ritmo o al nivel que debe de ser para trabajar en el restaurante, asegúrate de que revisando las diferentes secciones de esta clase, tú vayas a Google a invertir un poquito de más tiempo para revisar estas secciones. En este video solo te voy a enseñar las diferentes áreas y secciones de vocabulario que vas a necesitar todos los días en inglés para trabajar en un restaurante. Entonces vamos a revisar estas secciones de vocabulario en inglés. Totalmente listos. Vamos. Hey class. Welcome to this video. In this class, we're going to check some common vocabulary that you need to work at a restaurant, like the plan of a restaurant, some parts, different areas of a restaurant, the equipment like the cutlery and the glassware, The equipment like the crockery and other equipment that is commonly used in restaurants. We're also going to check some cooking methods. Different cooking methods for food in English. We're also checking ingredients like the animals, the seafood, the poultry. More food, more animals, the meat, beef, veal, lamb, pork, venison, the vegetables, the herbs, seasonings, some different beverages, the alcohol, some juices, some fruit, alcohol, wines, spirits, cocktails, beer. And that's all we're checking before we get into the classes. We need to go over some of these vocabulary words. Very simple, very common vocabulary that you use at a restaurant. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to check is some general parts of the restaurant. So every restaurant has or may have some or all of the following areas. For example, well, let's get started with the kitchen. So all restaurants have a kitchen. Depends if it's a hot kitchen or a cold kitchen. So here we have a little diagram. We're looking at it from the drone. We have a little drone shot, like a little helicopter shot, looking at it from the top. Hot kitchen. Cold kitchen. And in the middle, we have the pantry, which is where you find all of the food, ingredients, and different things. All right, let's keep going here. We have a waiter station, which is an area where you keep all your equipment and all your tools if you're a waiter or waitress. Here, we have an area with some tables. We have 4 tops and 6 tops. Tables for 4 people and tables for 6 people. Next to the tables, we have a window. Across from the tables, we have a bar. So we have a little section here for the bartender with some stools so some people can sit at the bar. A lot of restaurants, you can choose when you go and eat if you want to sit at a table or if you want to sit at the bar. A lot of different restaurants have tables with chairs, or maybe you have a little section like a lounge with a booth. Maybe you have booths at your restaurant. If where you live is cold, your restaurant probably has a coat room. Coat or cloak room right here. next to the reception area. Also, next to the reception area and the coat room, we have the cashier where you pay, or where the waitress or the waiter takes your check or your credit card to slide it. This restaurant has a little buffet line or a salad bar. You can have a little salad bar or a buffet. Here we have another area with tables and chairs, another window, another waiter, waitress station. And here we have a little section with the restrooms. Just a small traditional restaurant. Now let's look at some parts of the restaurant. So this is what the bar looks like. The bartender works right here. Here we have some wines and spirits, some wine glasses, cocktail glasses, some stools. We have a mirror. Next, the chef working in the hot kitchen. Here we have the pantry with a little coffee station, some equipment, some glasses, and some dishes. Let's look at the reception desk. Here's the reception desk with the reservation book, the host, the main door next to the reception desk. Here's the cloak room where you put all the cloaks or the coats, umbrellas and hats if it's cold or winter time, like a closet. Usually the guest leaves the coat when they come in. Hey class, muchísimas gracias por entrar a esta clase y ver estos videos. Si te interesa el curso completo y quieres apoyar a este canal, entra al vínculo en la descripción y aprovecha material didáctico, pistas de audio, el curso completo y un descuento de 50% en todo el curso de inglés relacionado con tu área de trabajo. Así que si quieres apoyar al canal, entra al vínculo en la descripción, haz un perfil en la plataforma y aprovecha un descuento de 50% en todo el curso con material didáctico, pistas de audios y videos completos. And then they take it back when they're ready to go home, when they leave. The cashier right here takes all the cash, the credit cards and the debit cards. She has her own little station. So these are different parts, different areas that you have at different restaurants. Now let's cover some equipment. In this section, we're going to cover some of the cutlery and some of the glassware that we use at different restaurants. Cutlery. Cutlery includes the silverware or the flatware. It includes all the knives, all the forks, and all the spoons. So if you didn't know, some restaurants have different knives at the tables. Different knives for different meals or different ingredients or different courses. For example, We have a table knife. The table knife is used just in general. So if your restaurant doesn't have different courses or different types of knives, for sure you're gonna have only a table knife. For example, if you sell seafood at your restaurant, you might have a fish knife or a seafood knife. You might not. Maybe yes, maybe not. If you work at a steakhouse or if you serve different steak from the grill, your restaurant, your tables might have steak knives, or you might bring out the steak knife if your customer orders something from the grill, like a sirloin, a ribeye, filet mignon. If your restaurant serves bread and butter, you might bring out a butter knife. Or a fruit knife for fruit. A carving knife for poultry. Or even a cake slice if you have dessert or celebrating something special at your restaurant. If your restaurant is real fancy, or if you're having a party, like a banquet, you might have all the knives on the table. You might have another knife that we don't have in this class. So here we have 7 different types of knives. So you can start practicing the vocabulary, the knife vocabulary, depending on the restaurant where you work. So just like we have different knives for different meals and ingredients and different things, different restaurants and different parties, different events also have different types of forks. Here's a carving fork for poultry like turkey, or carving the big pieces of meat if you have a carving station like the Brazilian restaurants, or if you have a carving station at your banquet, your party, or your event. Here's a little knife for dessert. And we also have a different fork for cake. Cake fork and dessert fork. If you have seafood at your restaurant, maybe you have oysters. Here's a little oyster fork. And here's a fish fork. A little fruit fork. And the regular table fork for salads. Just like we have different knives, different forks, we also have different spoons. We have a spoon for the sauce or the dressing. Here's another little spoon for sauce. We have a round spoon for ice cream. Dessert also gets its own spoon. A tiny spoon for tea or coffee. A bigger spoon for soup. And just a regular tablespoon. The more courses or meals that you get for each table, the more cutlery you'll have on the table. Also, the more food and drinks that you have on the table for the courses, if you have a 5-course meal, you're gonna have different glassware. For example, here we have 2 different kinds of glasses for water. You can have a tumbler or you can have a goblet, or sometimes both for iced tea and water. It all depends on what kind of event or meal you're serving. You might have different glasses for alcohol, like a wine glass, a beer flute, or a mug, or even champagne. They also have different glasses for cocktails like martinis, or tumbler glasses, long drinks, or a highball glass if you're serving brandy or sherry or other liquors. So the bartender should know all this, the different types of glassware. Let's keep going with something that's not glass but very similar, the crockery, the china. If you have different courses at your restaurant or during your meal, you're gonna see different types of china, like dinner plates, salad plates, bread plates, soup bowls, butter dishes for the butter. You might have a little ramekin or pepper and salt shakers. The different saucers, the small plates that we use for cups, coffee cups, teacups, espresso cups. Also, we have the teapots and the coffee pots, right? For the coffee cups and the teacups. The milk jug or the creamers, they're tiny. They look like little coffee pots or teapots, but they're very tiny. And these are big for the whole table. Also, the little ramekins for the sugar or the Splenda. So this equipment, usually most of it, it's on the table. Or if you're a waiter or waitress, you can find it in the pantry if you need more. Or usually you get it from the pantry to set up the tables. Other equipment or items that are commonly used in restaurants, they're usually next to the table because they're too big for the table. So you have a tray. If you have a tray, you should have a tray stand next to the table. Tray stand. If your table has wine or champagne, you might need a wine bucket stand for the ice bucket. Here's the tray that you use to carry the entrees or the different courses out to the table. A service plate. Usually these are tools that a waitress or a waiter uses to clean the table. You put it on your tray that is on your tray stand. A bread basket to bring the bread out to the table. The tablecloth, if you have a nice party or event. The napkins, obviously the placemats. I guess it all depends on the different style and decoration that your restaurant is using or your hotel is using. And here we have a little stirrer for drinks and a coaster for drinks. Cool. So this is all equipment that you're going to see around the restaurant. Now, if you work in the kitchen, obviously you need to know the cooking methods if you're a chef. Or if you're a waitress or a waiter, you should know the cooking methods for the different dishes, different items on the menu. So let's take a look at all the cooking methods. In this section, we're going to look at the cooking methods, which is hot cooking methods with fire. So if you take a look, all this, the cooking, obviously, you'll notice that we are using some kind of heat for cooking. Fire, right? Flame or heat for the cooking. Usually in the restaurant, when you say cooking, you're using heat. And when you say preparation, you are gonna be doing something cold, like cutting or prepare something cold. Okay, let's take a look at each one of the cooking methods. Restaurant customers sometimes, often, ask how a dish is prepared or cooked. So here are some of the main methods of cooking food. Boiling. Food is cooked in deep boiling liquid like water, stock, chicken stock, beef stock, wine, and other things in an open or covered saucepan. Next, we have simmering, like boiling, but the liquid is kept just below boiling point. When you steam something, the food is placed on a container and is cooked in the steam from boiling water in a covered pan or steamer. When you make a stew, like a soup, cooking food in its own juices with a little additional liquid in a covered pan at simmering point, that's how you make a stew. If you're braising something, then the pieces of food are first browned. You make them brown in a little fat. And then you cook it with some liquid in a closed pan. Or you can deep fry it. Frying pieces of food in a deep pot or fryer with plenty of hot oil or fat. A lot of dishes are sautéed. Sauté is cooking small or thin pieces of food in a little very hot oil or fat. The frying pan is shaken constantly to stop the food from burning. Or you can also flambe. Flambeing, after frying, alcohol is added to the food in the frying pan and is set on fire. So, this gives added flavor to the food. You know, with some white wine, some alcohol. Or you can pan fry it. Pan frying is frying the food in a little oil or butter using a frying pan over moderate heat. Or you can grill it or broil it, cooking food like steak or fish over or under open heat, under the oven grill, or on a barbecue or hot plate. Or you can do a little roasting. Roasting is cooking the food like meat or poultry with some fat in a hot oven. Or baking, cooking food like cakes, pies, bread, cookies in a closed oven. So make sure you know, if you work at a restaurant, the cooking method for the different recipes, different dishes. Excellent. The next section, I'm going to cover different animals. In this section, we're going to cover the food, seafood, and poultry. If your restaurant serves seafood, the term seafood covers all the fish from the sea or freshwater, as well as shellfish, all the fish with shells. Fish, here's some sea and freshwater fish. Let's look at the saltwater fish. Salmon. We also have Dover fish, sardines, different bass, cod, tuna, mackerel. Here's a fish steak. Here's a fish fillet. Some smoked salmon. Freshwater fish like carp, rainbow trout, river trout, catfish, even eel. Here's a picture of trout. Here's a picture of a tuna, a lemon sole, or Dover. Shellfish. The following shellfish are often served in restaurants, like crab, scallops, mussels, oysters, lobsters, and shrimp or prawns. If your restaurant sells poultry, you might have chicken, spring chicken, turkey, duck, quail. Here's a picture of a chicken. Here's a duck, a turkey, a quail or a spring chicken. Let's look at more meat. Meat covers animals like beef, lamb, veal, pork, and venison. Beef covers the cow. Veal is the flesh of very young cow. Lamb, pork. So obviously, you'll find beef in dishes like hamburgers, meatloaf, meat sauce for pasta. Veal is expensive meat, and sometimes they also use it for sauces. Lamb is the flesh of young animals. Pork is used in restaurants. They usually use the legs or the ribs. Venison, if you didn't know, venison is the flesh of young male deer. deers. Now let's take a look at some vegetables. So we're gonna look at different sections. Vegetables we have different kinds, like root vegetables, green vegetables, non-leafy vegetables, herbs and seasonings. So in this section, let's take a look at the vegetables. First, the root vegetables. These are all the vegetables that grow on the ground. And they stay there, they stay on the ground like a root. Different root vegetables include potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, turnips, radish, horseradish, ginger, onions, shallots, garlic, beetroots, some green vegetables, by the color obviously, right? Green vegetables like spinach. Usually these have leaves. Spinach, cabbage, broccoli, peas, beans, leeks, watercress, Brussels sprouts, lettuce, celery, spring onions. Some non-leafy vegetables, like fruit vegetables, like tomatoes, eggplant, cucumber, mushrooms, peppers, zucchini, pumpkins, okra, avocados, cauliflower, corn, sweet corn, and some herbs and seasonings like mint, rosemary, thyme, parsley, dill, sage, fennel, chives, oregano. Those are herbs and seasonings. So what I recommend doing is go to Google, look at all the images, all the pictures of different vegetables, different meat, different seafood and poultry. Just type the name and practice the name with some visuals so you don't have any problems when we take a look at the classes and we take food orders, drink orders, and juices. Speaking of juices, let's take a look at some beverages. This is vocabulary, different beverages. We're gonna start with no alcohol, non-alcoholic. And we're gonna start with some hot drinks. Like hot chocolate. Some hot drinks include coffee, obviously. So your restaurant may serve different kinds of coffees from maybe different countries like Costa Rica, Colombia, etc. Or your restaurant may have different types of coffee served in different ways, like espresso coffee, cappuccino, lattes, regular coffee, decaf coffee. You may have also different kinds of teas, like herbal teas, or just regular tea. Some people take tea with milk or lemon. You may have hot chocolate. All these drinks are hot drinks. Some cold drinks, maybe some juices. Apple juice, carrot juice, guava juice, grapefruit juice, mango juice, pineapple juice, watermelon juice, tomato juice, lime juice. Or you might have some soda, like Coke, Pepsi, ginger ale, soda water, mineral water. Usually all these are cold. Some drinks with alcohol in your restaurant? You might have wines. A wine list. Your restaurant might have red wine, white wine, rosé, which is pink, sparkling wine, champagne. You may have spirits like bourbon, brandy, whiskey, gin, rum, vodka. Your restaurant might also serve fortified wines, which is like sherry and vermouth, port, Marsala. And if you have a bartender, the bartender can make cocktails, like a Black Russian, or a Bloody Mary, or a daiquiri, or a gimlet. If you have a bartender, the bartender also has different types of liquors. Usually, the bartender uses the liquors to make the cocktails. They might have different flavors like coffee liquor, cacao liquor, creamy liquors, and depends on your restaurant, you might have different kinds of beer, like ale, dark beer, lagers, even stout. You might have draft or craft, which is usually like local beer. If you're a bartender, make sure you practice different types of beer. Also, if you're a waitress or a waiter, make sure you practice the different kinds of beverages. In this class, we're just going to cover the general different types of vocabulary for different things, different items that you're going to find in the restaurant. In a different class, we can have the actual serving wine, beer, coffee, tea, juices, etc. So I hope you enjoyed this class, this vocabulary class, just looking at the different general things that you need to know, like ingredients, beverages, and equipment in different areas in the restaurant. Make sure you check each section for the vocabulary that you don't know, so you can practice that section a little more for homework, okay? All right, good job, class. Excellent class. Hey, class, gracias por ver este video. En este canal practicamos inglés relacionado con tu área de trabajo. Así que si gustas apoyar al canal, suscríbete, dame un like, un me gusta y en los comentarios deja el tema que te gustaría ver en las siguientes clases.